I'm Martin Andelman from Andelman Matters. I write the blog, Andelman Matters, that's published articles for the last 5 years to help homeowners better get through the financial and foreclosure crisis. So you're thinking about applying for a loan modification? You've heard it's a nightmare, and it sort of is. It's better than it's ever been before, though, and nowhere near what it was in 2009 when it really was a nightmare for everyone. Today, there's one thing you need to know about applying for a loan modification. It's never the same twice. It's always inconsistent. There's no way to predict exactly what your servicer is going to do with your file. It's unfortunate, but there's something like 115 servicers, and there's I don't know how many investors and how many different pooling and servicing agreements, and they all combine to make kind of a mess. So what you can do is control the things you can control. Now, there's a company that puts out something called a CLAW report. It stands for Comprehensive Loan Analysis Worksheet. And what it is it's a series of reports or data sheets that help you know where your numbers need to be. Let me give you an example. When you apply for a loan modification, you're trying to fit into a certain formula, and it has to do with everything from your income and your expenses to the value of your property, to the type of loan you have, to who the investor is, to how late you are. All those numbers have to come together just right. And frankly, it's not easy to do. That's why people always struggle with it. They submit numbers and they hear things like, well, you have too high income. And then they submit again, well, it's too low this time. And it becomes frustrating and confusing. There's no question about it. Now, getting your loan modified is never going to be a day at the beach. But if you know the numbers, then you're a long way towards getting the loan modified rather than just guessing at it. The CLAW report will give you the numbers you need so that you're not just shooting in the dark. And frankly, otherwise, that's exactly what you're doing. So what you need to know is, did I pass the NPV test? You've heard about the NPV test. It stands for net present value. A net present value test, some people think of it as the time value of money. It's like, would you rather, if somebody offered you $1,000 today or $2,000 in 10 years, which would you choose? Well, in order to answer that question, you'd want to know the net present value of the $1,000 today. And the way you'd figure that out is you would say, well, if I had $1,000 today and I were to invest it somewhere that's pretty safe at a, say, 3 or 4% interest rate, how much would I have in 10 years? And if the number is more than $2,000, well, then you'd rather have the $1,000 today than $2,000 then. When you apply that same thinking to a loan modification, what the banks are trying to figure out is, if they modify the loan, will the investors who own the loan come out ahead, or are the investors better off to foreclose on the home, sell it, take the money from an REO sale? Which one of those do they win? Where do they come out ahead? And that's what the NPV test is all about. So there's a lot of numbers that go into that, and the CLAW report can tell you whether you pass that test or not, almost to the penny. The other good thing about the CLAW report is, if you don't pass, it'll tell you why. So if there's something that you can adjust, then you'll have the opportunity to adjust it before you actually apply for your loan modification. Once you've applied, it can take months, and you probably don't get another chance to shuffle things around. So it's a good idea to look at your CLAW report before you apply. Even if you've already applied, I'd still tell you that a CLAW report can help, because you'll know what kind of numbers the bank's looking at. And when they come back and say yes or no, whatever the case may be, you'll know what went into that decision. The other thing that the CLAW report can offer you is a look at the trust that your loan's in. Most people today have learned that these loans have been put into securitized trusts. The trusts hold the loans for the benefit of the investors that own certificates or bonds in the trust. So the trust, maybe it started with 1,000 loans in it. Maybe today that only has 50. Some of these trusts are almost over. So the trust report will show you exactly how many loans are remaining in the trust and how many have been modified over the last 4 or 5 years. How many received principal reductions? How many received interest rate reductions? How many extended the term? You'll know exactly what's gone on with all the different loans in that trust. That way, if your servicer comes back and says, no, we're not allowed to lower the interest rate, you'll know whether that's right or not and be able to say, well, you did on these 50, you lowered the interest rate here, how come not here? It can really come in handy in mediation too, because if there's a mediator there and your servicer claims that they can't do something that you see clearly they've done, it's a good idea to bring it up. The other thing the CLAW report provides is a link to your pooling and servicing agreement. That's the contract between the trust and the servicer, and a link to the prospectus, which is what was used when they sold the trust, the investments to the investors, and and other SEC documents that have been filed. Now, these get pretty technical, and it's nothing you'd want to read unless you had to. But if you're interested in knowing whether there's any restrictions that would prohibit your servicer from modifying your loan, that's where you'll find them. The Claw report is just the only way that you're going to get a straightforward look at what the numbers are, where you need to be, and what the numbers are to get approved for a loan modification. In the majority of instances, people that use the report get their loan modified. No one can guarantee anything. There is nobody that can force anybody to modify a loan. However, today it's much easier to get your loan modified by your servicer in most instances, especially when the numbers you submit are right from the beginning. So if it were me, I would buy the report. I know it costs money, and I don't like anything about any of this costing a lot of money. But it also costs a lot of money to apply for a loan modification with the wrong numbers, because you may find yourself on a 2-year loan modification go round, and the Claw report can prevent that from happening. And that's not only worth money, that's worth a lot of peace of mind. Claw stands for Comprehensive Loan Analysis Worksheets. They're worksheets that show you different aspects of a loan modification. Part of it will show you your income, what your income needs to be to qualify for a loan modification based on your other numbers. Another part of it will show you your home's value and how it relates to whether you pass the NPV test. And there are other aspects available with the Claw report as well, like the trust report, which will show you how many loans are in your trust today, how many have been modified, and what the terms of those modifications have been. That way, if somebody tells you that we can't do that because we're not allowed, you can say, well, it looks to me like you've done it here 50 times. And that can be very compelling both with servicers and with mediators. I wouldn't walk into a mediation without the worksheets that you can get from Comprehensive Loan Analysis Worksheets. They give you detailed descriptions and numbers of everything involved, everything that your servicer is looking at in order to approve you for a loan modification. Without them, you're kind of shooting in the dark.